All right, Big Man. Today is Tuesday. It's November 30th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Here with Chief. Chief, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ed. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
This is our last episode before Thanksgiving that we're recording. So we're in the future right now. We're in the past. I already fucked it up, but happy Thanksgiving to everybody who's listening.
I know. I thought you did fuck it up. So
I definitely did.
Yeah. You tried to save yourself. It did not work.
Nope, but belated happy Thanksgiving to everybody listening.
Wow.
And Merry Christmas, too.
Wow. Bad brain, Chief, never ceases to amaze me, but it's all right. I've been having a lot of bad brains day recently, so happy Thanksgiving for 2022.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. All right, so what's going on? What are we doing?
I mean, this is one of the bigger stories going right now that feels like maybe mainstream media is not covering, and we'll get into probably why in a second. But the Chinese tennis star who apparently is has up and vanished, and nobody knows if she's alive, healthy, this, that, what's going on. And so the story started. Her name is Peng Shuai, and I'm probably pronouncing her last name wrong, so my apologies. I don't speak Chinese. It's Shuai. I'm pronouncing it Shui. It could be Shuai. I don't know. Anyways, she posted on the Chinese version of Twitter social media post basically saying like she's accusing this guy named Zhang Goli, who is the vice premier of China, of sexual assault. She did that on November 2nd. The tweet was deleted quickly, and she has not been seen or heard from publicly since. And there's just like a lot of weird shit going on with that. And to put it in perspective, like this woman, Peng Shuai, is a huge star and celebrity in China. She was ranked as high as 14th in the world, which is the highest a Chinese tennis player has ever been ranked. She was the number one rated doubles player in the world. So, you know, if you have like an athlete from your country that is a major player on the world stage, like everybody knows her in China. You know, like if you list, like I think Forbes put out a like top 100 most recognizable athletes in the world. And like so many of them were cricket players from India just because they have so many people. So when you weigh that element of it, she's probably like more famous than like in China than Justin Fields is here, or you know, pick a quarterback. Like she's a big deal in China, and she is accusing this guy, like I said, Zhang Zholi, of rape and sexual assault, and he's a huge guy too. So it's not just like some like run-of-the-mill Chinese official that she's accusing. This would be like a combination of Nancy Pelosi and like Dick Cheney. So this guy is, you know, they have this thing called the sitting council, and it's either they have like it rotates, right? But they have basically it's as a council of, depending on the year or the term, either 7 or 9 people, and they rule China. Like they just rule China. So like they have like a Congress, but it's not like how we have Congress. So this is like one of the most powerful people in China, and like a household name. So like everybody knows who this guy is. He was at one point as high as like the third in command for all of China. Huge deal. And to give you another point of reference of people who listen to this show, he was a guy who like oversaw the Three Gorges Dam project. So like he's like involved at like very instrumental things, very big projects, and a very high-ranking official in China. Also, because he's a high-ranking official in China and the way the Chinese government and economy kind of works, he's reportedly worth like billions of dollars because he's always skimming off of all these, getting kickbacks and all these different things, because that's how the world goes around over there. That's how the Chinese government works. So he's a very, very powerful guy. And so when she puts this tweet out accusing him of rape, it's taken down immediately. That was on November 2nd. So now we're recording this on
the 23rd.
The 23rd.
Just to be clear, a lot can happen in a week. That's
sure.
We'll also provide an update at the end of the episode, maybe if something changes.
Perfect. Yeah.
We just had to get this. We're doing a lot of traveling for Black Friday. You know,
but it
Cyber
also
Monday.
To me it doesn't matter because the details of the case are just kind of shining a light on like how things go down in China. So hopefully by the time this is released, like we found out that she's fine.
Yes.
And they're putting things out there that like that nobody is really accepting, but they've put out videos and things like that. Being like,
Emails I saw.
The email, so we can just get like right into that.
And I do want to note too, I feel like it's getting picked up a little bit more now. Like I've seen it in a couple more.
Shout out our guy
places.
Sagar, and from Breaking Point, Sagar and Crystal Ball.
Yeah,
they've talked about it multiple times, but it's a so it is kind of gaining steam, and a lot of people are starting to pick it up now. But we're 3 weeks out from when she originally disappeared, and if it were not for other like tennis stars like Novak Djokovic, Serena, other people really tweeting about it, shining a light on it, maybe this just disappears because that's kind of how things go.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with the guy, the Mark Cuban of China that we did a very similar episode on. And people are worried about him. So.
And they have like a term for this over there. It's called, it's just a disappeared person. It's like, what? What do you mean it's a disappeared person?
Yeah,
like it happens so commonly that they have like a full term for what happens when these people just go away. And while there have been like emails and social media posts about her, she herself has not posted anything, and her account has been like highly censored since this happened. But like you said, you referenced the email, okay? So the email was obtained, okay, and it was an email supposedly from her to the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association, International Tennis Association, and CGTN, which is like a Chinese media, it's a state-run media site, posted this email that was totally her. That's what they're saying. It was totally her, and it was basically asking the WTA, because they're posting on their website and other places. And it says, hey, like, stop posting content about me, Peng. It was written in the first person, about me without my verification and consent. She said, I am safe. I am not missing. Thank you for caring about me. Basically was like the gist of this email. And the WTA's response was, this only raises our concerns about her safety and whereabouts. They said that they had repeatedly tried to contact her through multiple forms of communication and got nothing. So, and then, so it's like, then it goes back to like the old thing with sports leagues in China, and you can contrast it to, the NBA. The NBA is probably the biggest American league over in China, and the NBA basically just kind of does whatever China says. Wasn't it Daryl Morey, who was the GM of the Rockets, got in trouble for
You're talking about the Hong Kong protests?
The camps, the Uyghur camps, where they're basically like re-education.
John Cena got in trouble from the Fast and the Furious movie.
Yep.
There's a lot of examples of it happening.
A ton of examples, okay? And the WTA, which, it's not like a major league, they probably depend on China to like make a lot of money. And their response when asked about their relationship with China, it says, we are definitely willing to pull our business and deal with all the complications that come with that. So there's like standing up to China. So the NBA wouldn't do it. Fast and the Furious, different movie production studios wouldn't do it. The WTA, the Women's Tennis Association, is standing up to China on this issue. So
good for them.
Great for them. And, and this goes back to, we talked about the NBA, we talked about other major news outlets, and Sagar on Breaking Points, which again, like I really think they do a good job detailing different news stories. They're solely on YouTube. And they said that as soon as they posted their original story, which is like an 8-minute clip talking about Peng Shuai, that they got a thing from YouTube saying like, this is demonetized. Like, you're not going to make any money off this clip. Now they get hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. So it's like, okay. But historically, I guess that anytime you get one of those demonetization emails, you can submit an appeal and be reviewed by a human, and they'll be like, oh yeah, so like you tripped the algorithm because there was like a missing person and a rape allegation in the title, blah blah blah. We'll take this down, and you're remonetized. It was reviewed by a human over at YouTube.
No,
sorry, can't talk about it. So like he raised the point, being like, well, can we not talk about Epstein? Can we not talk about Harvey Weinstein or anybody accused of anything? Like, because it's news. So can we just not talk about that without being demonetized? And that's basically they're holding firm on that position, being like, no, like you can't talk about it in this instance about Peng Shuai.
Damn.
Yeah, fucked up.
Are we going to be able to put ours on YouTube?
it'll go on YouTube. We won't make any money off of it. I don't know if we make money off our YouTubes anyways, but yeah, like that would be a problem for us. So like this is a thing where YouTube is penalizing a major partner YouTube outlet in Breaking Points for talking about a story without adding any speculation, conspiracy. They're just like, this is what happened. This is who she is. This is who he is. This is what she said about him. Boom, penalized, demonetized. Damn. You know, so that basically the YouTube has a policy that you have a disincentive to report the facts, because it's not like they're saying anything crazy. They're just saying exactly what is out there in the news and what is being reported. And then that makes me think that if YouTube is doing that, are there other mainstream, you know, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, that haven't really picked this up to the degree, like this is like a huge major sports star accusing a titan in Chinese government of rape, and then she disappears and no one's talking about it. Like that to me should be a major international story. And if they're talking about it, I haven't seen it. So, and I went looking today to see if it's on like mainstream cable news, and it's just not. So maybe, I'm not saying that that's what's happening, that they got a note from somebody like similar to the way YouTube does it, but maybe they're controlling their programming in that way for a reason.
I see there looks like there was a CNN article.
CNN has posted articles recently. I'm talking about like actually on like their programming at night.
Oh, on the
on
okay,
TV.
On TV.
Yeah, correct. So they've started posting articles, but even those articles are kind of like non-committal. I was reading through those today, and I have like a list of headlines from other publications we can get to in a minute. But so in addition to that email that was posted, another Chinese state media account, which is actually kind of interesting. Like it'll say, you know, I can't read Chinese, so it's some, you know, at whatever Chinese name, and then it'll say like this account is linked to the Chinese state media. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. Like good on Twitter for like making people know that. And this person said they posted this video of her. She's sitting around a dinner table with her coach and a couple of friends, and the journalist for this state media, you know, company says, I acquired 2 video clips that show Peng Shuai was having dinner with coach and friends. And like you watch it and it's like it looks fucking fake. Like it looks fake. And they're like talking about the date, and it looks like what the fuck is going on here? Like it's clearly like they're trying to like appease people, being like, yeah, she's totally fucking fine. She's totally fine. And it's just like a very fake look, seemingly to me. Again, I'll post when I blog this. I'll post that link in the blog, but so you should check it out for yourself. But it feels like a forced, contrived thing. They talk about the date. It's almost like, yeah, see, like this is totally a recent video. You can tell because we're talking about the date. It's like very odd. And then they posted another picture of her like signing autographs and smiling. And it's like, well, if she's able to smile like this so genuinely, then how could she be in grave danger? So it's like, okay, like it's almost like the old Shakespeare quote, like doth protest too much now. Like you're like putting out these these weird videos of her, and it's like, yep, everything's fine. And they're just trying to like appease everybody. And there's been like a flurry of these types of videos. Like, look, she's fine. She's fine. China themselves have said that this is like people have malicious intent with reporting this story. Like, what are they doing? But at the same time, like she doesn't have access to her account. She hasn't like gone on video anywhere. No one can get in touch with her directly. It's just these weird random videos. So who knows? And then because of they've had these flurry of videos that they're calling proof of life videos from the state media. The WTA again said it was good to see Peng in recent videos, but they don't alleviate or address the WTA's concern about her well-being and her ability to communicate without censorship or coercion. So it's like, even if she is like alive, is she like doing so under threat of violence? Is she allowed to just live and be a free person? Or is it like, hey, sit here for this fucking picture of this dinner, or you're really getting it? Like, who knows? But like, because of these things, the heat is starting to get turned up on China. So like you mentioned that there are a couple of CNN articles. The Human Rights Watch accused the IOC of something called sports washing. Okay. Basically being like, hey, IOC, we know you're in bed with China. The Winter Olympics are 3 months away in Beijing. They don't want any major international crisis. IOC hasn't really said anything about, a former Olympian and potential future Olympian. She is 35 years old, so I don't know if she would be able to play in the Olympics next time out. But they have the Winter Olympics, and the IOC is just being like, we don't know shit. So they have like human rights watch organizations, like nonprofits, like being like, hey, what the fuck's going on? Then you have our White House. Jen Psaki, the press secretary, said that they are deeply troubled and concerned. So like the White House has issued a statement on it. The National Review, which is a magazine website, had a headline that said all sports leagues should pull out of China, based on this and other things, of course, but that's like a pretty hard line to draw. New York Times, why Peng Shuai frustrates China's propaganda machine. So it's like, this is like she's a wrench in this system where it's like, fuck, like we have this, China's so great. And then they have this thing that's right out there, an international figure saying like, hey, like you can't even have your basic human rights protected if you're assaulted and raped by a sitting government official without threat of violence, further violence against you. It's pretty fucked up. So New York Times is saying that. United Nations has called for an investigation. And the Daily Beast had an article headline, Peng Shuai is making China panic. So like I think people are starting to wake up. So if you have the Hong Kong thing, they're threatening Taiwan. They have this thing. You have the Uyghur camps. They have a lot of negative press about China as they're trying to, further establish themselves as a major player on the world stage. So I think people are starting to like, people have always been a little bit weary, scared of China, but now people are like, hey, like this is fucked up. Like maybe there should be action taken against them. We'll see. But you have a lot of publications from both sides of the political spectrum in the United States calling out China for this and then other things as well. And this is like really shining a light on the way China runs their state media, the way they run their country, and it's actually in a way like good to see. It's good to see like people be like, hey, like we disagree on basically everything, but we all agree that what's going on there with this tennis star Peng Shuai is fucked up, and it is. And so hopefully like she's fine, and we get to like the bottom of this, and she gets released, or I don't know how this ends for her, if she just goes into exile somewhere, like you can go live in Paris or live in the United States or what, but seems like it's a very bad situation for her in China.
Yeah, man. I hope she's all right. I mean, that's pretty.
I think that's all you can say at this point. And like you said at the beginning, we might insert like an update here on this episode, because I think it's, a few days will go by before this publishes. But as of right now, there's been no concrete evidence showing that she is alive and well.
I'm trying to remember the other guy who we did an episode on. Do you remember his name? He was he was a big businessman. He was one of their. He wasn't Alibaba.
No.
I forget exactly who it was.
I'll bring up his name.
An episode on. But
I know who you're talking about, obviously.
I'm trying to look it up now. Jack Ma.
Jack Ma, yes, Jack Ma, and he was Alibaba. He was Alibaba.
He was Alibaba.
He was
okay.
Alibaba. Yeah. So he was like one of the richest people in China, and he had the government like kind of spike a few of his like IPOs and things like that, and then he was on the run. Like he was just like, hey, like he's the Bezos of China, literally. Like that's what Alibaba is, and he was forced to go into hiding, or perhaps like was abducted and put in a camp or whatever. But it was basically like, hey, like, yeah, you're getting a little big for your britches, Jack Ma, so go fuck yourself. And we're still in charge. Like we're the Chinese Communist Party. Like we're the all powerful thing here.
I'm looking at a YouTube channel here. It's WION. I'm not too familiar with them. But it says that he resurfaced in Hong Kong. This was October of 2021.
Okay.
So, but earlier this year he did surface, but it was still
kind of sketch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows what will happen to him eventually, and who knows what will happen to this woman. But this is
And I don't know much about that news source either, but it's 4 million followers on YouTube.
So it must be pretty fucking big.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it just goes to show that this is something that the Chinese government will practice regularly. And those are two hyper famous people that it's like nobody is untouchable, you know? So like, can you imagine, like, I'm trying to think, like, if Jeff Bezos just went missing here.
Yeah, and like we always compared him to Cuban because he always did like shows like that.
Yep.
And this is like Serena, you know. So
it's great, perfect analogy.
You know, Serena, which is crazy. So
right,
definitely keep an eye on that. Like I said, we're recording this a week before, so a lot can happen. We know that, but like I said, just with travel schedules and stuff, we were only able to do this now. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now on November 23rd, and we'll see where we are when this airs. Hey, let's take a quick break here because I want to talk about Upstart. If you're one of those people that dreads looking at your credit card statements, you're not alone, and that's why Upstart wants to help you kind of get through that. Upstart's a fast and easy way to pay off your debt with a personal loan that's all done online. Whether it's paying off credit cards, consolidating high-interest debt, or funding personal expenses, over 1 million people have used Upstart to get one fixed monthly payment with a clear payoff date. Rather than looking at a credit score alone, Upstart considers other factors like your income, current employment, and credit history to find you a smarter rate for your loan. You can check your rate without impacting your credit score in minutes for loans between $1,000 to $50,000. And you can even receive your funds as fast as one business day after accepting your loan. So if you're in a pinch, it might be nice to kind of check them out because, you know, if you qualify for your loan and you can work something out with them, you might be able to get your loan pretty quick. So that's good to know as well. That's a bolded point I'd like to make. So find out how Upstart can help you lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/Eddie. That's upstart.com/Eddie, EDDIE. Don't forget to use our URL to let them know we sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Upstart.com/Eddie. All right, let's get back into the episode. There's also some other stuff going on in China, right?
China, like, it might just be a house of cards. You know, and I think that's where you see some of these articles being like, hey, they're China's starting to panic, their PR machine, their propaganda machine is starting to crumble. And like we did an episode on that Evergrande company, the real estate development company that has defaulted on their debt and sent shockwaves and ripple effects all throughout the Chinese government and all throughout the country. They're all throughout the Chinese economy. And like that showcased what a problem the debt has become. But that's just one company, and it's much more widespread than that. And you're starting to see it happen more and more. And another example of that is this airline company, which is an airline tourist company called HNA. Same thing. They went bankrupt, and that's a huge company. So we'll talk about them in a second. But the debt, like, you know how like every time we have like an election cycle, people are always like, oh, the national debt, the national debt, the national debt. Okay, what if I told you that China has eclipsed us in terms of national debt to GDP? Like they have more outstanding debt again, you know, with a ratio to their GDP than the United States does.
I'd be surprised because I was under the assumption that they're just swimming over there.
Same. I had always thought that too. So since 2008, their debt to GDP ratio has more than doubled, and it's approaching 300%, which would be the second highest in the world behind only Japan. And we're like sneaking up behind them too. Like we're not in the best spot either. But we've always been told that this national debt in America is such a crisis, and China owns all of our debt, and we're fucked, and China's got us over the barrel. Actually, China's kind of fucked too. And, you know, we have debt, you know, as a problem on a citizen level. They have it like with all these different corporations. Like we mentioned Evergrande, they defaulted. And then we had this H&A group, it has gone bankrupt as well, defaulting on their debt. And there are economists who say that because China's debt, like ours has kind of like risen steadily, which makes it more manageable, which is not good, but it's like a little bit more manageable, supposedly. Theirs has risen so fast that it's like, that is always an indicator that an economic bubble is about to burst. Like historically, when you have your debt to GDP spike and jump the way it has in China, there's always fallout for that. And that is what people are predicting is coming next. So China, you know, they're ramping up militarily, threatening Taiwan. They have those supersonic missiles. And it's like, I think I've talked about this book before on on Dog Walk, but it's called The Guns of August, which is all about the build up to World War I. And we talked about the turning. So it's like, and it goes back to World War II also, where Japan really had to bomb Pearl Harbor because they were out of oil. Okay, like they were out of natural resources. If they wanted to like continue to expand and take over Asia, they needed to get the oil in the Philippines, and they couldn't do that without disabling our Pacific Fleet, and that's why they attacked us. So that, there are like indicators that like China, they have a lot of bad things stacking up here, and they have this giant debt, which is a big problem. And like I said, this H&A Group is just the latest example of that. And they called what they did, basically, they called it binge borrowing. Okay. And they were this company that started by these two guys, an airline in this, I think it's called Hainan, which Hainan, which is an island to the south of China. And it's like a vacation destination type place, kind of like their Hawaii. Like that's where like their famous people go to vacation. It's tropical. It's beautiful. And they started an airline based out of that island. And then over the 90s, 2000s, et cetera, as China grew and grew and grew, so did they. And they had great relationships with the Chinese government. And they were just this growing company. And like I said earlier, you in China, like you can't really be successful unless you have like great relationships with the Chinese government, which usually includes kickbacks to like the top guys. And they definitely did that. And one of their quote unquote benefits for giving out these kickbacks was that they were allowed to be over leveraged. So they were meaning like there are in the United States used to have this too. And that was a big problem with 2008 is that historically you were only allowed to be leveraged like 11 or 12 to 1. So you could only borrow $12 for every one you had in real assets. Well, they let that get out of control before 2008. And some of these companies in China, because they're giving so many kickbacks on these, like, hey, like give us $100 million loan. There's $5 million in it for you, government official. Like, so we'll take 95. You take 5. Just put it in your fucking pocket, and we'll deal with the other. But it's still on their books. So they are allowed to continue to leverage themselves up to buy all sorts of things. So initially, you want to do that. You want to buy other smaller airlines, bring them into the fold because you get to have. You have more buying power, more leverage against some of your suppliers. It's like a business practice that happens all the time. Then they went insane with it. They own 25% of Hilton, the hotel company. Huge investment. Okay.
Yeah.
So Hilton Worldwide, one of the biggest hotel companies in the world, this company, this H&A Group out of China, bought 25% of it. So a monster investment, and they didn't have like cash on hand to do it. They took out loans, and they took out loans from the State Bank of China, which the only way that they would be able to do that is because they're greasing the officials.
Did you see anywhere how much that deal was for 25%?
See if I have that written down.
Is that releasing?
Yeah, I'm sure it's out there because they're going through bankruptcy right now. So I don't know exactly if you can try to pull that up. I don't have
Hilton and what is it?
H&A Group.
H&A.
Yeah. So it was a 25% stake in Hilton Worldwide.
It looks like $6.3 billion.
Okay, big number. Okay, they also were the single largest shareholder of Deutsche Bank. So you could argue that if you're a airline and tourism company, that investing in Hilton internationally, Hilton Worldwide for a big nut like that, 25% makes some sense. It's still like in your space where you're, the industry, you're comfortable with it. You like that makes sense. Deutsche Bank is just an investment bank. Okay. They bought 9.9% of that. Again, I don't know how much it cost. Okay. But that made them the single largest shareholder in Deutsche Bank, which is one of the biggest banks in the world. And, so when they went through this bankruptcy, it was not like your standard bankruptcy. There was like, as they were uncovering this and taking this whole thing apart, it was like, holy shit, there's like so much corruption in here. And they have all these different like holding companies, and this guy, this partner owns that, this partner owns that. And there's conflicts of interest, even, within their own holdings that they didn't really care about. They're just trying to buy up everything and just line their own pockets as quickly as possible. And then it got so big that, and they were reportedly skimming off of like every single thing that they were doing. And they had all these different loans out to all these different people that when they went bankrupt, their creditors were like, hey, like you guys need to, because they would borrow from the Chinese state government and they owed them a lot, but they also would borrow from other places around the world. They owed $187 billion that they couldn't pay. So they had to declare bankruptcy. And $187 billion that they had to default on.
So now Hilton or none of these companies are going to get fucked. They're just going to sell those stakes, right?
I don't know exactly how that. So the bankruptcy settlement is still ongoing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you that will typically hurt your stock if your major shareholder goes bankrupt. So because then that would just it would flood the market theoretically with shares of Hilton, which would drive the stock price down. Mm-hmm. So like it would hurt them. I'm not sure if that's played out yet, but because they are still going through this bankruptcy process.
Looks like they plan to sell its 7.6% stake, and it's worth around $1.8 billion at current market prices.
That's the Deutsche Bank or the Hilton?
That was in 2018 though. So,
yeah, right. So that's
the best. That's Deutsche Bank, but Hilton was 6 point whatever. So.
Right. So this is what I mean. Like these debt bubbles are still looming, and they're still spreading throughout the Chinese economy. And you had of that H&A group, you had these two founders, basically that started the company together in 1993. One of them was arrested on corruption charges. And the other guy, this happened like maybe 6-7 months ago, something like that. The other guy was on a business trip in France, accidentally fell off a cliff, dead. So the French officials were like, yeah, like, this was accidental, blah, 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 done. But there supposedly are witnesses saying that he either jumped or was pushed. So like he's on this sightseeing tour in the French Alps and off a cliff, dead. So it could very well have been suicide because he knew what was coming. The other guy, got arrested, a few months ago. So if he knew that fate was coming, maybe he just jumped. But that is basically like they got fucked. And China, before this went down, they're like, all right, like now, like we can't do this anymore. We can't, like, I don't care how much you're greasing us. We're not allowing you to continue to just be leverage forever. So they stopped allowing them to borrow, which stopped their expansion, which really started it like almost like a Ponzi scheme. Like, we'll just borrow more to pay off our other debt. And it's like, so as long as you keep having new debt to pay off your old debt, like you're theoretically okay. But once the gravy train stops, the music stops and you have to find a chair, then you got nothing and you're fucked. And that's how you get these situations where like, hey, you owe $187 billion right now. And you have one guy arrested on corruption charges, the other guy mysteriously dies, and it's going to take a long time to do this bankruptcy process because there's so much debt in so many different sectors. And and bankruptcy laws are different state to state. They're definitely different from country to country. So it's going to take a long time for this to kind of untangle itself. And in the meantime, it's really hurting it'll hurt the Chinese economy. And it's like people are saying that this is like the tip of the iceberg for debt problems for these corporations over in China, because it's like the government allows them to continue to borrow. And they've been doing that at like, they're calling it binge borrowing. And that's like a countrywide phenomenon, which is fine as long as the economy keeps going up. Not fine, but like you can live with it as long as the economy is still growing and growing rapidly. Once the economy stops growing and they stop letting you lend all that extra money, then you really are fucked. So it's like those are the two biggest examples right now, but there could be dozens, hundreds more. So we'll see what happens, but it is like kind of scary seeing like China, like I don't know if you want a strong China necessarily if you're an American, but our economies are so like interconnected in this, this era of the global economy that you want them to at least be stable. And it's like, they don't seem very stable right now. So we'll see what happens, but it's definitely something to watch the rest of this year and into 2022.
Yeah. I'm seeing here too that the Hilton and the Deutsche Bank purchases were part of a $40 billion acquisition spree.
Crazy.
So they were on like a nice little shopping spree. Yeah,
all debt purchases.
We'll toss in this company. We'll toss in this company. Crazy.
And like, especially for an airline company, like if you just Google how many airlines have gone bankrupt or internationally, it It's a lot. Okay. It is very, very, you want to know why you're getting charged $25 for your carry-on and shit like that? Or, your bag weighs 50, here's another $50. It's because it's very, very difficult to make money as an airline. And so the fact that, like, no shit, they didn't have cash on hand, like, they're an airline. Like, that just never works. So them going hyper leveraged to make these expansion deals happen, like I said, as soon as the music stops, they were going to be in big trouble. And now, like, the chickens are coming home to roost, and you're wondering how widespread this is going to impact their economy, because how many companies are exactly like Evergrande and H&A? Could be a lot.
Well, I do wonder, too, like you said, we have so much stuff tied there. We want them to be stable. This might be a dumb question, too, but wouldn't the American companies be the safest there? Like, because, like, aren't the people creating the iPhones and the Nike shoe, aren't they getting their checks from, like, it would be the people working on the Road Belt Initiative and stuff that would that would suffer, right? Which I'm sure
it would
is
be,
a large amount.
like, I mean, everybody would suffer, right? Because if you have the Chinese economy, like, collapse, like, that impacts every, it's going to impact everybody. It's going to impact, we're having supply chain issues now, but it would impact everything. Like, if Nike and Apple can't make their numbers here because they can't get any supply for their goods out of China because the factories are shut down because there's no money because the economy collapsed, then everybody gets fucked. It's the same thing as that happened in '08. When it started off as a very big domestic problem, but because we are, the center of the economic universe still, it rippled all throughout the entire world. Iceland got hit bad with this mortgage crisis problem. Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Greece, famously, like it is something that if you have an economy that is kind of teetering anyways, right? Like Greece, Portugal, a lot of those Mediterranean countries, they're just not like super diverse, super robust economies. So like when the United States is, because we're so diversified in our economy, and we are this, we're always should be able to bounce back from these economic bubble bursts. Other countries they have to go through austerity where they just have to really tighten their belts, and it's very painful for them in a way that we haven't really seen since the Great Depression. So it'll be interesting, but China is, very similar to us. So it'll be interesting to see how much this debt bubble, if it does really burst in a big bad way, how much it impacts the everyday citizen in China, and what that would mean for the strength of the Chinese Communist Party, which people are poking holes in it, going back to this Peng Shuai story and the Uyghurs and Taiwan and Hong Kong and all of that. So it's like they're tightening their grip like a vice grip, but they might tighten it so much that it just cracks, So we'll see how it plays out. But it's like very fascinating, interesting to watch, and also like a little bit scary.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
So,
all right, then. Anything else on China?
I think that's it. I mean, the only other thing, which it's like those, scary headline. They do have those supersonic missiles now. Russia's testing them as well. And then you see like reports from like our scientists, like, this defies science. And it's like, that's not good. Like, why don't we always have the latest, greatest, coolest shit militarily. And it feels like the first time, at least in my life, that we're like trying to play catch up with Russia and China on that front. So, but yeah, that'll be interesting. But that's kind of all I have on China right now.
Cool. Well, all right then. Thanks, Chief. That's it for today, everybody. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. We will see you then.